The avoidant has rules, not written ones, not consciously chosen ones. Rules that live in the nervous system rather than the mind, installed early, reinforced repeatedly, running so automatically that they stopped feeling like rules and started feeling like simply how things are. Stay self-sufficient, do not need, maintain control of the distance, exit before the cost arrives. Do not be visibly moved. These rules have governed every intimate relationship the avoidant has navigated, have functioned with varying degrees of cost as the architecture of a relational life that prioritizes safety over genuine connection. They have been tested before, have held before, have been reinforced by every experience of creating distance and finding that the distance worked, that the feelings diminished, that the specific person receded, that the system returned to its preferred baseline. And then the super empath detaches, genuinely, not as strategy, not as the performed indifference that is really just directed love wearing a disguise. From the real place the exhaustion produced, finally redirected, I have genuinely invested in my own life place, and the rules begin to break, what the super empath's detachment actually is. Before the breaking of the rules can be understood, the detachment itself needs to be described accurately, because the word detachment gets used loosely, and the looseness matters here. The super empath's detachment is not emotional unavailability, not the closing off of feeling, not the construction of a defense against further hurt, not the strategic withdrawal of warmth designed to trigger pursuit. It is the genuine redirection of primary investment. The super empath felt everything, perceived everything. Brought to the relationship the full, extraordinary quality of genuine empathic presence, the accurate seeing, the warmth without demand, the patience that came from real understanding rather than from the performance of tolerance. And at some point, through exhaustion, through honest limit, through the gradual and non-dramatic recognition that the investment was not being returned in proportion, the primary investment redirected toward their own life, toward their own interior, toward the genuine, not for anyone's benefit occupation of their own existence, not away from the avoidant as a tactic. Toward themselves as the honest response to having given too much outward for too long. That is the detachment, and the avoidance system, which has been scanning the relational environment continuously, feels it immediately. The first rule that breaks control of distance. The avoidant's most fundamental relational rule is control of the distance. They decide how close. They set the terms of proximity. The management of closeness is theirs to determine when to advance, when to retreat, at what pace and to what depth. This control has been reliable. In every previous relationship, the avoidant could regulate the distance from their end and trust that the other person's orientation toward them would keep the dynamic stable. The other person reaching, the avoidant managing the reach, that configuration was the one the system knew how to operate within. The super empath's genuine detachment removes that configuration, because now the distance is not being managed from the avoidant's end. It is simply present, produced by the super empath's genuine redirection toward their own life. And distance that the avoidant did not create is not the same experience as distance that they did. Distance they created feels like freedom. Distance that arrived without their engineering feels like loss. The avoidant encountering the specific quality of the super empath's genuine absence, not waiting, not monitoring, not organized around the avoidant despite the quiet, finds themselves in unfamiliar territory. They are no longer the one regulating the closeness. The control is gone, and without the control, the first rule has broken. The second rule that breaks, do not be visibly moved. The avoidant's commitment to composure, to not being visibly affected, to maintaining the exterior that communicates I am fine regardless of what is happening in the interior, is one of their most consistently maintained rules. It has held through many things. It does not hold as reliably through the super empath's genuine detachment. Because the super empath's detachment produces something in the avoidant that the composure was not specifically built to contain. Not the ordinary response to loss, the avoidant has managed ordinary loss before, something more specific. The recognition that someone genuinely extraordinary has genuinely moved on, not performed moving on, the real version. The version that is visible in the quality of their presence, full, genuinely occupied, actually somewhere in their own life. The version that carries no residual monitoring of the avoidance movements. The version that is recognizably, undeniably, completely elsewhere. The avoidance composure was built to manage their own feelings. It was not specifically built to manage the experience of watching someone they genuinely claimed become genuinely free of the claiming's pull. Something moves in them before the composure can catch it. The second rule breaks. The third rule, exit before the cost arrives. The avoidance exit protocol is precisely timed. They have developed across decades of practice the instinct for when to leave, when the intimacy is deepening past manageable, when the stakes are becoming real, when the cost of staying is beginning to exceed the system's tolerance. They exit at that point, before the wound arrives. But the super empath's genuine detachment presents the exit protocol with a problem it has never previously encountered. The cost arrived without the staying. The wound the exit was designed to prevent is present anyway, not because the avoidant stayed and was hurt, because they left and are losing something that is now, visibly and genuinely, moving beyond reach. The exit protocol was supposed to protect against loss. The loss is here. And the rule, exit before the cost arrives, has no procedure for costs that arrived despite the exiting, has no protocol for the specific, disorienting situation of having done the thing that was supposed to prevent this and finding that this happened anyway. The third rule breaks. The fourth rule, stay self-sufficient. The deepest rule, the one most thoroughly woven into the avoidance identity, self-sufficiency, the genuine, built-through necessity capacity to not need, to provide internally what others seek externally, to be fundamentally whole without anyone else's participation. The super empath's detachment challenges this rule at the level of direct evidence. Because the avoidant misses them, specifically, in the located, particular, this person and not a generalized other way that genuine attachment produces genuine missing, the self-sufficiency cannot address this, cannot replicate what the super empath's presence provided, cannot generate from internal resources the specific quality of being genuinely seen and genuinely accompanied that the super empath brought. The self-sufficiency is still present, still functioning, still real in its limited way, and it is not sufficient. That gap between self-sufficiency and sufficiency is the crack in the deepest rule. The fourth rule breaks. What the breaking produces. The breaking of the rules does not produce a healed person, does not produce someone who is suddenly capable of the sustained intimacy the relationship required, does not produce transformation through the simple mechanism of having the rules broken. It produces disorientation. The specific, groundless quality of someone whose reliable map of their own interior has proven inaccurate, whose tested and refined approach to intimate connection has encountered a situation it cannot navigate, and in that disorientation, in the specific, unfamiliar, protocol-less territory of a system that has met its limit, something becomes possible that the intact rules prevent: honesty. The specific, arrived at through failure honesty of someone who has run the usual program and found it insufficient, who has nowhere left to go except toward what is actually true. The rules broke because the super empath was real enough, grounded enough, genuinely occupied enough with their own life that the usual mechanisms had nothing to work with. The detachment was not a strategy. It was simply a person finally, genuinely living their own life. And that, the simple, unstrategic, completely themselves reality of someone who stopped organizing around the avoidant and started inhabiting their own existence, is the only thing that has ever reliably broken the rules. Not force, not pursuit, not patience maintained past every reasonable limit. Just someone being so genuinely, completely, unperformatively themselves that the avoidance system encountered something it had no rule for. Someone who did not need the rules to break, and broke them anyway. The rules have broken. What produced the breaking has been named. The disorientation the avoidant is left with, the honesty that becomes possible in the protocol-less territory, all of that is real and accurately described. What 3,000 more words can do is go somewhere more grounded, less about what the breaking produces in the avoidant, and more about what the super empath's genuine detachment actually required of them to arrive at. Because the detachment gets described as the thing that breaks the rules, but the cost of arriving at genuine detachment, the specific, personal, unglamorous cost, deserves honest examination. What the super empath had to go through first. The genuine detachment did not arrive easily. Did not arrive through a decision or a framework or the application of psychological insight about what avoidants respond to. It arrived through exhaustion. Through the specific, accumulating, finally undeniable experience of having given more than was returned for long enough that the giving became genuinely unsustainable. The super empath brought extraordinary things to the relationship. The accurate seeing, the warmth without demand, the patience that came from genuine understanding rather than performed tolerance, the specific quality of presence that saw past the behavior to the person underneath and responded to the person rather than the behavior. These things cost something real. They are not unlimited resources. They come from a specific kind of interior depth that can be drawn on but requires replenishment. And in the avoidant dynamic, the replenishment was insufficient to match the expenditure, not because the avoidant was withholding deliberately, because the avoidance system was not yet capable of the specific kind of reciprocity that replenishes empathic investment. The warmth that came was real but intermittent. The seeing was not returned in kind. The presence that was offered was met with presence that was partial, managed, always somewhat held back, and the super empath who felt everything felt the insufficiency of that return, felt it clearly and accurately, and tried for a significant period to compensate for the insufficiency through increased investment, through more understanding, more patience, more of the extraordinary qualities they had available, which depleted the reserve faster, until the genuine limit arrived. That limit is not failure, it is honest. It is the body and the interior refusing to continue an expenditure that the environment cannot sustain. And the detachment that followed, the genuine redirection of primary investment toward the super empath's own life, was not a strategy. Was the natural consequence of someone whose empathic capacity had been drawn past sustainable levels and needed urgently and genuinely to be replenished from the only available source, their own interior, the specific work of genuine detachment. The genuine detachment required specific work that is worth describing concretely because it is not as simple as deciding to redirect. The habit of orientation toward the avoidant was deeply established, not just emotionally, neurologically. The pattern of attention moving toward the avoidant, of the interior checking the relational temperature, of the morning beginning with some version of the question of what is happening with them, this pattern had been running long enough that it operated below the level of conscious choice. Genuinely redirecting required noticing the pattern every time it ran, not suppressing it, not judging it. Simply noticing it and then not following it, returning attention to what was actually present, to the work in front of them, to the person in the room, to their own genuine interior rather than to the ongoing monitoring of someone else's. This return, practiced hundreds of times across weeks and months, is what gradually changed the default, not a decision made once. The accumulated weight of small returns, each one unglamorous and unremarkable, that slowly shifted where the attention lived. Alongside this, the genuine investment in their own life, not as demonstration, as the honest, nobodies-watching rebuilding of genuine interior content. The things that actually interested them, engaged them, produced the quality of absorption that makes a life feel inhabited rather than endured. Interests that had been running at reduced investment because the primary energy was elsewhere. Friendships that deserved more than maintenance-level presence. Work that was capable of genuine engagement but had been receiving the distracted, partially available attention of someone whose real preoccupation was somewhere else. The investment was real and required real attention, required showing up to things fully. Required the specific courage of someone who is rebuilding their relationship to their own existence after a period of organizing it significantly around someone else's. This is not comfortable work. It does not feel, while it is happening, like the significant thing it is. It feels like the ordinary effort of maintaining a life, which is, in fact, exactly what it is. An ordinary effort maintained consistently, in genuine service of genuine investment, that is what genuine detachment consists of. What changed in the super empath through the detachment. The super empath who arrived at genuine detachment through this specific, costly, unglamorous process is not the same person who entered the dynamic, not better in a comparative sense. Different in specific ways that are worth naming. They know something now that they did not know before, not as information, as lived, embodied, demonstrated through surviving knowledge. They know that their empathic capacity, brought fully to an environment that cannot receive it, does not replenish itself, that the extraordinary quality of their presence is a resource that requires care. That genuine caring for themselves is not selfishness, it is the maintenance of the capacity for genuine caring for anyone else. This knowledge changes how they enter subsequent connection, not by making them more guarded. Guarded is not the same as grounded. But by making them more honest earlier about what the connection is requiring of them and whether it is being matched with what the connection is returning. They know that the feeling of depth and intensity that the avoidant dynamic produces is not the same as the depth and sustainability of actual intimacy. That the charge, the uncertainty, the push and pull, the specific aliveness of never quite knowing can be mistaken for depth because it produces strong feeling. That strong feeling is not the measure of genuine connection. That the quieter, more consistent, less electrically uncertain quality of a relationship with a genuinely available person can produce depth that is more sustaining even when it is less immediately intense. They know their own worth in a way that is less contingent than it was before. Not perfectly, the work of knowing your own worth is never complete, and claiming it as complete would itself be a performance, but more grounded, more rooted in the specific, demonstrated evidence of having been through something real and remained themselves throughout, of having given generously and eventually, honestly, recognized the limit and respected it, of having done the unglamorous work of returning to their own life and finding, in the returning, that the life was worth returning to, what the avoidant encounters now. The avoidant whose rules broke in the encounter with genuine detachment is now encountering the super empath at a different stage, not the one who was depleted, not the one whose primary investment was elsewhere organized. The one who has done the work, and the work has produced something visible, not performed, actually visible, in the quality of presence, in the groundedness that is evident without being announced, in the specific, unhurried quality of someone who is actually somewhere in their own life and knows it. The avoidant encounters this, and something continues to happen that the broken rules have left them without defense against. They are genuinely attracted to someone who genuinely does not need them, not performed not needing, the real version, the version that comes from having rebuilt a genuine interior life rather than from deploying unavailability as a technique. And the genuine not needing, the actual, demonstrated, lived-in version, produces in the avoidant what the genuine detachment was always going to produce. The specific, uncomfortable, rules-broken experience of wanting to close a distance they did not create, of pursuing rather than being pursued, of finding that the pursuit instinct, which has been dormant through every relationship where it was not required because the other person was always already moving toward them, is now active, genuinely, not produced by strategic unavailability but by genuine otherness, the real selfhood of someone who is completely occupied with their own existence. The avoidant is pursuing against every rule that was supposed to prevent this, because the rules broke, because the super empath was real enough that the rules had nothing to work with. What this means for the super empath now. The avoidant is pursuing, the rules have broken. The genuine detachment produced the genuine response. And the super empath who has done the real work, who arrived at genuine detachment through genuine investment in their own life rather than through strategic performance, is now in the most important moment of this entire dynamic. The moment when everything that was built in the detachment is tested, because the pursuit feels like the resolution, like the arrival of what was hoped for. Like the bond finally finding its way from interior to expression. And it is also, the avoidant pursuing is also, the return of the same person with the same wound and the same management protocol and the same alarm that will fire again when the intimacy deepens past the threshold that broke the rules. The rules broke. The work required to keep them from running again has not necessarily happened. The super empath who has genuinely detached, who has done the real work, who has rebuilt their genuine interior life, who knows their own worth in the grounded, demonstrated way, receives the pursuit from that place, not from the depleted place. Not from the place that was organized around the avoidant and will simply reorganize around them again now that the pursuit has arrived. From the grounded place, which means receiving the pursuit with warmth and with clear eyes simultaneously, feeling the genuine gladness of it and also asking the genuine question. What has changed, not as a test designed to produce a particular answer. As the honest inquiry of someone who knows the difference between the rules breaking and the work being done, who knows that the rules broke because the detachment was genuine, and that the detachment being genuine means the genuine life it produced is worth protecting. The super empath's genuine life, the one built in the detachment through the unglamorous, specific, real investment in their own interior, is not available to be simply reorganized around the avoidance pursuit. It has value, it has direction, it has the specific momentum of something that was built genuinely. The pursuit enters that, not the other way around. And whether the pursuit is accompanied by the actual work, the therapeutic, self-confronting, pattern-interrupting work that would allow the avoidant to stay when the alarm fires next, is the only question that determines whether what is beginning now is genuinely different from what came before. The super empath knows this. That knowledge is the whole of what the detachment produced. And it is enough, more than enough, to receive what is being offered with open eyes, and decide from genuine strength, from genuine self-knowledge, from the genuine life that was built in the silence, what to do with it.